Good night, everyone. Just tonight, God is good and God is good all the time. Happy New Year Eve. Hope everyone enjoying themselves and be safe out there. Um, I have a word for you on tonight, and the title gonna be the cupbearer and the baker. So the cupbearer is the holder of this office that were brought into a confidential relation with the king, and you must have been thoroughly trustworthy, as part of his duties was to guard against poison in the king cup. So the cup baron is the person that is trustworthy to the king. He got to check the king food and his drink to make sure it's not terminated or either poison. That's what cup baron is. And the baker is the one who cook all the food. And the cupbearer come behind him and taste everything, and make sure everything's straight before it gets to the king. So we left off at yesterday that Joseph was sold and he was lied by preferring a wife, and she got angry because Joseph did not want it to sleep with her, so she wanted to punish him and have him sent to prison. So today's lesson is about the cupbearer and the baker. There is two trustworthy people. Well, it was two trustworthy people to Pharaoh. But something happened and they just disrespect Pharaoh, and he placed both of them in prison, and they both was in prison with Joseph. And in the last passage they said Joseph was in prison with two kings. So these the two kings that was talking about he was in there with. So this story gonna come from Genesis chapter 40, verse 1 to 23. Okay, so now the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, they're the king of Egypt, and they offended the master. They offended Pharaoh, and Pharaoh is angry with both of them, and he put them in custody. The house of the captain of the guard, you know. So now they're in prison with Joseph was confined. They was in prison where Joseph was confined at, and the captain of the guard assigned them to Joseph. Can you remember last page I said February, um, he put Joseph in charge in prison. So they sent both of them to Joseph, because both of them gonna be in there and they both gonna have a dream at the same time. So now remember last page, when they placed Joseph in prison, they said he was in prison with two kings. So these are the two kings that we're talking about. So now we see there are two kings, a cupbearer and the baker, now who was in prison with Joseph. So remember, they said the captain assigned them to Joseph was February, who put Joseph in charge. So now when both King Cupbearer and the baker was in custody being held in prison, had they why they in jail? Both of them have a dream at the same time. At the same night. They both have dreams. And, all dreams have meaning. So, when God sends any one of us a dream, it always means something. you know. So when Joseph came to them, the next morning, he saw that they were dejected, and he asked Pharaoh who was in custody with him in the master house. So why do you look so sad today? So they telling Joseph, we both had dreams, and they both was there and no one to interpret, so they both had dreams. So they figure like no one here, interpret our dream, So we're gonna see that one dream gonna be favorable, the other dream, was gonna be not favorable, it's gonna be horrible. So Joseph said to interpretation, now this the first thing he gonna honor God. He gonna honor God. He not giving all this credit to himself. Because see, when we have gift, all of us have different kind of gift. Our gift is not for us. We can't use the gift. We have to call out on the name of God or call out in the name of Jesus, to for us to receive this gift to help other people. So that's why God, he giving God the credit. He can interpret dreams. He can't interpret on his own. He have to call out to God to give him an answer to these dreams. So Joseph said the interpretation belongs to God. Tell me your dream, you know, and he will call out on God and he will give him the answer. And that's how it is. I am a divine, also unsolved missing person. And I cannot, unsolve anything on my own. I have to call out on God. Had to call on God to give me the missing piece to find out where these people is at. We cannot do it on our own. So we cannot get the credit. So Joseph not taking the credit. He firsthand saying, God, we gonna give all this to God. God is the one that gonna interpret these dreams. So now the cupbearer and the baker had dreams at the same time. So now Joseph asked to tell them, the dream. He said, tell me your dream. So the first one, the cupbearer, he gonna go first. He will start first and tell his dream. So in his dream, he saw a vine in front of him, and on the vine were three branches. There were three branches. As soon as it budded up, it blossomed, and his culture ripped into grapes. Now Pharaoh's cup was in his hand, and he looked. The grape was squeezing them into Pharaoh's cup. Now he said the grapes was squeezing into Pharaoh's cup, but then put the cup in his hands. So after the grape was squeezing in the cup, it was placed in his hands. So Joseph give the Joseph about to give the meaning of cupbearing dream. His dream was the three branches. And then the grapes was squeezed into Pharaoh's cup, but then next it was put in his hand. So Joseph giving out the meaning. The three branches are 3 days. Within those 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you into your position. And you will put Pharaoh's cup in his hand just as you used to do when you was a cupbearer. But when all goes well with you, remember me. Now Joseph interpreted his dream. Now after Joseph interpreted his dream, Joseph telling the cupbearer, when all go well, remember me. Show him love and kindness. Mention me to Pharaoh and get me out of this prison. Now he was forcibly carried off from the land of Hebrew, and even here I have done nothing to deserve to be put in this dungeon. Now Joseph is pouring his heart out to this cupbearer. And he said, I interpret this dream to you. So that means you in 3 days, God, Pharaoh gonna lift you up and put you in position. So Joseph is telling you when everything is go well, you in that position, remember me. Cause remember me. I was forced. He said, I was forced here. I was forced here. I don't deserve to be in here. I was falsely accused and was in prison. Remember me. So we gonna see if the cupbearer gonna remember him when he get in position. Sometimes people forget you. You can be like side by side on the same level, but one get the position, you forget. You got to remember, once you get in position, and somebody you was like side by side with people, don't forget the next person. But he gonna get that position. He gonna forget about Joseph. So this is the barrier, the baker dream. Now this is dream. Now he say on his head were 3 baskets of bread. 3 baskets of bread. Was on top of the basket with all kinds of baked goods, for Pharaoh. So but the birds were eating them out of the basket on his head. Now I forgot to tell you. Now the first dream, the cupbearer, here was favorable. Here was good. Here was he gonna in 3 days he gonna be put in position. Now this dream here is not favorable. He said, well, since the cupbearer dream was favorable, let me tell you my dream. Everybody's dream is different. You may have good dreams, you may have bad dreams, horrible dreams, shaking dream gonna shake you off. Everybody's dream is different. Now he figured the first dream that the cupbearer said is favorable, something good. Okay, he gonna be in position. So let me tell you my dream, Joseph. So he telling Joseph his dream, and it don't sound too good. He said the 3 baskets of bread that's on top of his head. He said the birds it's eating off the bacteria that's on his head. So let's see, Joe's about to give him a meaning of his bread. Now he said a 3 basket or 3 days. Well, in those 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and empower your body, on a pole. And this don't sound good. He gonna lift his head up, empower his body on a post, and the birds will eat away his flesh. So I mean, he gonna be dead. He gonna be dead on that post, and the birds just gonna be eating up his flesh. So now the third day was Pharaoh's birthday. And he gave a feast for all the officers. He lift up the head of the chief cupbearer and chief baker in the presence of the officers. Now he did both of this in front of everybody. He restored the chief. Now he doing 2 situations in front of everybody. The cupbearer. He restored the chief cupbearer to the position. It put him in his position in front of people. We got in the presence of all the officers that's out there. So that he once again put the cup into Pharaoh's hand. So that's what his dream was about. He gonna restore the cupbearer into his position, and he once again he gonna put that cup into Pharaoh's hand, But the baker dream, he empowered the chief baker, Remember, he crucified him. So remember Joseph's interpretation, the dream. Joseph said, "Remember him." But we see the chief cupbearer, however, did not remember Joseph. He forgot him. Now Joseph's interpretation of these dreams, and the first dream was, it sounded so good. You're gonna be in position. Okay, when you're in position, remember me. Talk to Pharaoh to get me out of here. I falsely was accused of being in here. I don't deserve to be here. Please remember me when you get in position. But he got in position and he forgot Joseph. So Joseph wound up serving 2 years after that. Because he forgot to talk to Pharaoh. So now we have 2 kings, cupbearer, and then we have the baker. Both was in prison, the same prison that Joseph was in, but they both had dreams. They both had dreams and both had different dreams. So Joseph had interpretation both of the dream, but he first gave credit to God first before he didn't give a credit to himself. So the first one, he did the first dream was the cupbearer. The dream was favorable. It was favorable. In 3 days, Pharaoh would lift him up and restore him into position. And he will put Pharaoh's cup in his hand. But the second dream was not favorable from the baker. His was not favorable. In 3 days, Pharaoh will lift off his head, take his head off, and pile his body on a post, and the birds would eat away his flesh. Now Joseph asked the cupbearer to remember him, but he didn't. But Joseph still will be blessed by God and placed in position. So the cupbearer and the baker was 2 of the most trusted men in Pharaoh's kingdom. These were the 2 trusted men in Pharaoh's kingdom. The baker was in charge of making Pharaoh food. Now, the baker, he was in charge of making all Pharaoh food. And the cupbearer was in charge of tasting all the food and the drinks before it was given to Pharaoh. So these 2 people was very important to Pharaoh and his kingdom. Because a lot of kings that's in charge have to be careful. So he got, like when you're a celebrity, you got somebody fixing all your food and stuff. You got to have somebody that's gonna come behind them and check and make sure everything is good, before it get to the master. So that was the cupbearer was for. You had the baker was cooking all Pharaoh's food, but then you had the cupbearer come behind him and taste everything and take all the drinks and everything before you might get to Pharaoh. So these was the 2 important people that was in the kingdom. In case any of the food and drink were contaminated or either poisoned, You know, so these trusted men must have been suspect of a serious wrong, perhaps of conspiring against Pharaoh. Excuse me. Later, the cupbearer was released. Sorry. Okay, the cupbearer was released because he was in 3 days. He was in position to. He was in his position in 3 days. The baker, he was executed. So when the substance, excuse me, y'all. So when the substance of dreams came up, when they hunt Joseph down, not hunt him down because he was already incarcerated, you know. When the substance of dream came up, excuse me, I don't know what's going on here. Joseph focused everyone's attention on God. And that's what we supposed. When we talking to someone about a situation or anything, or we trying to help someone, you know, I always bring the story about God. You know, God is the reason for our battle, our struggles. You know, and when they came to Joseph about the dream, the first thing he acknowledged, okay, God interpreted all these dreams. You know, he didn't give himself the credit. He give the credit to God, letting them know I'm gonna call out on God to interpret these dreams, to give me the answer so I can give to y'all. You know, so using the situation to make himself look good, he turned it into a powerful witness, you know, for God. You know, he recognized the opportunity to relate God to other person that's experienced. And that's what I'm saying. When you talk to other people about this, you got to talk to other people about experience with God. You know, even though we have gift, I can't just lay up here and to think I can close my eyes and see what these missing people at. No, I have to call out on God to interpret what these missing people is at. So we have gift, but our gift come from God. You know, so the baker is in charge of the food. The cupbearer in charge of tasting all the food and the drinks before giving it to Pharaoh. You know, so these were two trusted men in Pharaoh's kingdom. But some kind of way, something happened that they both had offended Pharaoh. And Pharaoh got so angry that he placed both of them in prison and they happened to be in there in the same time with Joseph. You know, and with Joseph, but some kind of way the cupbearer had favor with Pharaoh, you know, and he was released and he was put in position, you know. But as the baker, they must have did investigation, and one was released, but one was crucified, and that was the baker. He did not have no favorable dream, but the cupbearer did, and he was released and he was put in his position. So there was the story of the cupbearer and the baker, of Pharaoh, in his kingdom. There were the two trustworthy people in the kingdom of Pharaoh. He trusted both of these people. You got one cooking all your food. You need one to go behind him to taste all the food and the drink to make sure everything. You make sure no one put poison or anything in it before it gets to the king, before they get to the master. So that's the story of the cupbearer and the baker, the two trustworthy people of Pharaoh in the kingdom, wind up in prison at the same time with Joseph. And wind up both had dreams at the same night, and they had to call on Joseph to interpret this dream. And before Joseph interpreted this dream, he gave God the credit. That God is the one that gonna interpret these dreams. When God give all us gifts, we don't have this gift on our own. All our gifts come from God. That means we have to call out on God order for our gifts to work. So that's all the word I have for you today. And happy New Year Eve again. And y'all be safe. Y'all have a blessed night and be welcome to enjoy the new year that is coming. We're gonna be focused on the new things, of our future, our life, you know, we're gonna embrace all the new things that gonna be coming to us in the next year, you know. So in the coming year, you know. So y'all have a blessed night, and I see y'all on the next video.